us who've been on the committee for a while and just like a sentence or two about what brought you here, maybe what your focus has been. And then we'll have you introduce yourself to the group as well so that we have that information.
Oh, give me just a minute, because now we're gonna have, all right, now we're good.
Excellent.
And Deb, I also just want to mention, Jeff Jezik on Zoom is also, will be a new alternate. It's not official yet, because the town council needs to go through their, second vote. But
Okay,
he is sitting in this morning also.
fantastic. Hello there, Jeff.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Jeff doesn't have a face.
That's all right. We don't all need to have faces.
Screen speaks.
There.
Where are you, Jeff? Let's look at your face for a second. You're in the shadows.
So I think that's our fault. Right this morning.
We need better technology.
Okay, well, I'm Deb McDonough. I appear to be the acting chair because of the recent upheaval, which let our chair leave the committee. And that's not anything ugly. That's just that the council has made some rules and we now time out after a certain number of cycles on the committee. So, I'm Deb McDonough. I have been on the committee since before the committee. I was in the group that asked town council to have a sustainability committee. It was originally an energy committee and was reformatted as a sustainability committee several years ago. Our primary work has been to try to bring these questions of energy efficiency and sustainability to the decisions made by the town. I came at this originally from sort of solar perspectives and things like that, but looking at a wide variety of technologies to help move this forward. Let's go this way, since you're a counselor.
Sure. I'm Lydia Jopp. I've been on the council committee since May 23, so not too long. I came to the committee for work and personal interests. I work at Competitive Energy Services. So I have that background to bring, and then I'm also just personally interested in the future of Scarborough's environmental protections and making sure that that's a part of especially the growth of the town. I also have a personal interest in a circular economy, so reusing secondhands, which I would love to see the town of Scarborough do more with. And yeah.
Do you have an engineering background?
No.
What do you do with this energy? You work for Competitive Energy?
Yep. So
What do you do there?
so it's an energy consulting firm. So
Okay.
it's managing energy needs, soup to nuts, commodity neutral. So not like from a green perspective, but and I personally work in procurement, so securing electricity, natural gas, also like renewable products contracts
Interesting.
for like most of the colleges in New England, a lot of manufacturing, cities and towns. Yeah.
I could talk to you forever about that because I don't understand any of it.
I'm Patrice Castenholz, and I am I am an alternate.
No, you're official now.
No, not till March. It's
No, you've been voted.
oh, I have?
Yeah.
Wait, I got an email saying that I have to be,
No, you were sworn in this morning, right?
I was sworn in as an alternate this morning, and the council has to meet and
No, you've already been voted in February. your
Okay,
vote went through.
cool.
You're good.
okay, I was an alternate until a week ago. I'm a full-fledged voting member, and I am a retired nurse, but I work I do COVID clinics and flu clinics and volunteering for various things like that. I am a master gardener. I'm very interested in environmental issues and also sustainability, recycling, all kinds of stuff like that. And I feel very overwhelmed on this committee. Learning a whole lot. I kind of view myself as your citizen experiment to, if I can understand something, then it's probably okay for the rest of the community. Because I don't have a background in solar energy, whatever, although I do have a solar system on our house. So, an e-car, but, so, anyway, that's pretty much it.
Let's just go around the table.
All right.
Yeah, Jamie.
Jamie Fitch, Sustainability Manager for the town. I'll be short and sweet. Anton, you're up.
For the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah. My name's Anton Boder. I've been on this committee, I think, since, I can't remember, 2010 or 2011.
Yeah. it seems
It was
like-
pretty much since the very beginning, I think. When did this committee actually become a committee?
That's a great question and one that I could answer. in just a moment.
But it's, anyway, it's been a long time. It was the Energy Committee. So it's been a long time, and it's been an interesting committee. You know, and we've done some interesting work, solar panels, Trigen, I guess, which nobody wants to talk about anymore. We've done things on recycling. I spent most of my career in international banking, and then the last 15 or 20 years I was at Penn State. I was one of the faculty in their business program. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I always wondered why they put me on the Energy Committee, because I don't have an engineering background and I don't know anything much about electricity. But I've learned a lot, and it's been interesting. And I think the committee can do good work.
Finance background has certainly been helpful.
For a couple of times.
Anyone.
Particularly things related to discounted cash flow.
Yeah.
It always makes you sound smarter when you throw something out like that.
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Dan Shapiro, a new member. I'm an alternate, I think.
You are.
Unless you tell me I'm
No,
not.
you are.
You have a nice beard too.
Appreciate that. I've lived in Scarborough 4 years, and this is my first time being on a committee. And I was just looking to get involved. And when I'm not serving on the sustainability committee, I work for a solar development and construction company. Although not anything in Maine. And also don't have an engineering background, but I do oversee an engineering department. So I have enough to be dangerous.
Okay, and what do you do at this solar company?
I lead a construction and engineering department.
Wow,
So we don't build ourselves, but we develop and oversee construction for large scale utility solar power plants around the country.
and you say this is not in Maine?
Correct.
Where do you do your work?
Texas, Louisiana, Midwest. Many places where there's more land available than in Maine, although we did a project at Penn State, believe it or not.
Okay, State College,
Yeah.
out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, so Pennsylvania is the farthest northeast that we've gotten.
All the red states that don't like renewable.
Is the.
Believe it or not, those are our biggest markets.
Yes, I know. I
Is the
understand.
current political situation going to affect you and the company?
Definitely. Oh yeah, already happening.
Are you trembling?
He looks very relaxed.
Very relaxed for someone who should be. trembling.
We get used to, we call it the solar coaster, is kind of the name that we use for fun in the industry, because it really goes through changes all the time, and it always seems like doomed. You're probably familiar. But we always find ways, and we adapt and we change, and we make it work, and we're still there.
Keeps it interesting.
Absolutely, sure does. Sometimes more interesting than we'd like it to be, but it works. It's the reason it works is because it's a competitive business. It is viable as an energy source, and as long as that's true, it will exist.
Hmm. And your solar panels all come from China, right?
No, not all. We do quite a bit of domestic manufacturing. I mean,
Okay.
we don't, but.
That's where you source your product.
There's been a big push in recent years, tax credits that are given for domestic content, so. Products that are made in the US, both steel and solar panels.
Mm.
So it's not big enough to supply everything, but it definitely is a part of it. Anyway, just happy to be here and nice to meet you all.
Oh, welcome.
Thanks.
Hi, Ron Allen. Been on the committee when it was the Energy Committee, so it's been a while. Don't know I can't remember, 16? Do you know? I don't know.
I started in 18 and you were here when I was here,
Yeah, so
so.
it's, as an alternate in 16, and I have no idea. Anyway. My background is, well, my degree is in computer science, master's in computer science. My background is in planning nuclear war.
Valuable skill, valuable skill.
Yes.
It's a little terrifying, Ron. I'm not gonna lie.
So what is the plan, Rob? Let me know.
What are you feeling about this political climate?
It's devastating. Anyway.
Where did you do that work, planning for nuclear war?
At the
In his basement.
nuclear war planning site in Omaha, Nebraska.
Was that part of the US government?
JSTPS, Joint Strategic Target Planning Staff.
Is that Army? I'm sorry,
It's joint, so it is all services work in a third level of the underground. Very deep in the ground and basically plan where the missiles are going to strike.
wow.
We
Most
learn
people aren't getting
something every
layoffs.
time we do this circle.
I know.
How long ago was this, Ron?
Yesterday.
A while. Been retired for since, well, I don't know, anyway,
Okay.
but did that right up until, I did it for 25 years, so.
And you were a civilian or you were part of the military?
I was part of the military, then I was a civilian. So. Graduate of the Air Force Academy.
Nice.
But interested in renewables, energy, and the environment since 1970. And we installed 15 years ago, we put in a geothermal heating system in our house.
Nice.
So got to get rid of all that stupid oil. We wanted out of here, rip the house apart, put in geothermal system and anyway, that's enough, I think.
Do you feel we should build a nuclear reactor here for power here in?
See Brookie and comment.
There is a difference between knowing about nuclear energy and knowing where to throw bombs.
Yes.
Really? It was very diplomatic of you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I bet your Russian geography is really good.
Yes, as a matter of fact.
I'm Bill Donovan. I'm a lawyer. I spent 40 years practicing law, mostly for hospitals, nursing homes, in a regulatory setting. Retired a dozen, 14 years ago. Ran for the town council, got on, and now in my third term, this is my 7th year on the town council. In between the second and this term, I was the president of the Scarborough Public Library for 5 years. And those are community service like town council, like the library, those are the things that I like to spend my time doing. I asked for this assignment. I had solar panels. I put in a heat pump system to get rid of all the propane gas. And my house, I built a new house on Harmon's Island, which is part of Higgins Beach. And that's really worked out well for us. We're testing to see, we have a great solar design to the house as it faces south, and so we're seeing how we're doing with our new solar experiment. So I asked for this assignment, and because I believe in the mission the same way all of you do.
Let's have Jeff go ahead and introduce himself as well.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Gezik. I've lived in Scarborough since 2018. I joined this committee just to volunteer, and I felt like this was the best committee for my background. I went to Maine Maritime, worked on ships for about 5 years as a marine engineer, and then I started working in the renewable field, where my company develops, builds, mostly like large scale utility, solar and wind, and some batteries. And I work in the remote operations center, so we monitor those projects 24/7. And they're across the country, and mostly Arizona, Texas. We have a few sites here in Maine. Yeah, that's my background. And yeah, I'm looking to volunteer, get some more roots in the community, and I figured this would be a good committee to start.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff, and I apologize for mispronouncing your last name.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, no, yeah, don't worry about it.
And Autumn, you spend enough time with us that I think it's worth having you introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Autumn Spear. I'm the planning director for the town. Been here about 2.5 years now. And I enjoy our Wednesday morning chats.
And Helen, do you want to just say good morning as well?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Helen Harmon. I'm a planner for the town, so I work with Autumn.
Okay. Okay, and while we were doing introductions, I did pull up what I believe to be the very first ever minutes of the Energy Ad Hoc Committee, and that was in July of 2009. So,
All right.
all right, that was here. Changes, vote on minutes.
Vote on minutes.
So Jamie sent around minutes from the previous meeting. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
And just for the sake of our newer members, alternates fully participate in the meetings, but only vote when there's not a quorum. So we'll just be,
The question, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I can't vote.
you can abstain if you would like.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Excellent.
Thank you. And since all of our voting members are in person, we can just do straight yay or nay. So in favor.
All in favor?
Right. And one
Opposed?
abstain.
One abstention.
Thank you.
Changes to the agenda. Do we have changes to the agenda? Okay, we'll move forward to the agenda as printed. Public comment.
So we do have members of the public online. So if you would care to speak, raise your hand. We'll allow you to talk. Go ahead, David.
Hey, it's good to see you, Deb, in that seat. We met a little more than a year ago when I came and presented a couple of times. I just wanted to tie together a couple of folks in that room. Like Dan Shapiro, I rode the solar coaster for 13 years, primarily on the finance side of solar. I'm here to listen again and see if there's a way that I can be helpful to bring a community solar field to Scarborough on otherwise thoroughly disturbed land. A couple of other knots that I wanted to tie together. I'm on the sustainability collaborative at Piper Shores. Also, I chair the board's Buildings and Grounds Committee, and because of two so far, solar agreements that we have linked to, thanks to CES, Lydia. We are saving over $100,000 in our annual operating budget at Piper Shores because of those connections to net energy billing solar fields, and we're working on a third one. And also, Patrice, you may remember me from when we met briefly, and shortly after we met, you became on the wait list at Piper Shores, where I am as well. This Friday, for your benefit, Patrice, and also for Jamie, who's a member of the Sustainability Collaborative at Piper Shores, we're having another meeting of that collaborative at 3 p.m. in the Wayland Room at Piper Shores this Friday afternoon. Patrice, I'd encourage you to come as a future resident of that group. Nice to be here. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, hands online. Okay, then let's move on to old business. The EV charging ordinance.
Yeah, so this is just a quick update that the updated language for the EV charging ordinance will go to the ordinance committee at their March meeting. So as a review of the process, it'll go to the ordinance committee. They will decide to move it forward to council. So it'll go through first reading at council. Because this is related to our zoning ordinance, it will go to the planning board for review, public hearing, and an opinion from that group, and then back to the town council for second reading and a vote. And there will be an opportunity for public comment on the ordinance, and all four of those steps: ordinance committee, town council, planning board.
And this is the adjustments to the ordinance.
This is the adjustments, yeah. So I can't, since we are scaling back the requirements, I can't imagine that there's going to be too much pushback on those revisions. So I think it should be a fairly straightforward process.
Okay, and so for those that are new to us, over the previous couple of years, the committee put together an ordinance that requires certain EV infrastructure in new construction. So ensuring that there's conduit under parking lots or wiring to garages in residences and sort of scaled for different sorts of use cases.
So not required to build EV charging, but EV charging ready.
Mostly EV charging ready. Yeah, there are a few cases where they're required installation, but the real goal here was to make sure that we were making it easy and possible for the right people to put things in.
Yeah, I'll also share related to EV charging, that GPCOG is working on a regional EV charging plan. So working with municipalities in southern Maine to identify where charging should exist, where it currently exists, where it should exist. They've got a survey out right now asking for public input into where people live, where they currently charge, if they are charging. Barriers to adopting electric vehicles and access to charging is a big barrier, and to help kind of inform that plan. So I will send out that link to that survey, and we're working on getting it on the out on town channels as well. And they are looking at I was just asked to do a presentation to the communities participating in that process, because we are further along in terms of EV charging than a lot of the other communities in this area.
And for the new people, GPCOG is the Greater Portland something of
Council of Governments.
Council of Governments.
The regional planning entity, yep. Yeah.
And
so-
jump in whenever we do that to you, like
Yeah.
I try to notice them when we do that, but I won't notice them all.
The alphabet soup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
thank you for defining the acronym. When I first joined this committee, I swam through acronyms.
Okay, well.
Yeah, don't be shy. Speak up if we
Yeah,
say an acronym.
exactly.
GPCOG, good people too.
Yes.
Served on that committee for years and
Yeah.
lots of friends, and they're very effective.
And next we have a dirge, go ahead.
Yeah, another alphabet soup. So the energy efficiency conservation block grant. It was a program through the department, program through the Department of Energy, that was funded through, I want to say it was the Inflation Reduction Act. And that is not surprisingly put on pause. So the town, the way that that program worked is the populous municipalities in every state were given direct funding or access to direct funding to do certain energy related projects. And so we just had to basically explain how we were going to use our $74,000.
And we did that so fast. We were so ready. I'm not being sarcastic at all. We
yeah.
actually were so ready.
Yeah, and so we had identified, this group was going to do a feasibility study for a community solar array and a municipal solar array. And that funding has now been put on pause. I would suspect indefinitely, but we haven't heard that officially yet. We will, in terms of like my workload and things like that, this group's, I'm going to be heavily focused on our climate action plan for this group for this year. And so I think, you know, a recommendation as part of the climate action plan may be to look into a municipal solar option. So we may just be putting a pin in that until the funding comes back or until we get through our climate action plan process. Because that will provide us with a good roadmap for actions that the town should take moving forward. So that's my unfortunate update on the EECBG grant.
Who would benefit from the municipal solar array?
So the thought was that it would initially go towards offsetting our town electricity use, which would hopefully bring down the mill rate for everyone in town, but then provide, if there's excess, an opportunity for other residents to buy credits for to the array to offset their energy use.
And so at some point, when there's capacity, we can revisit the question of ways in which we can move forward
Yeah.
without that grant
Yeah,
money.
for sure. There's definitely low cost and no cost options that we can pursue. It's like you said, it's just a matter of having the personnel capacity to work towards that.
Any questions about that? Okay. New business is to select a chair and a vice chair.
So we'll take nominations.
I nominate Deb to be chair.
Second,
Me too.
I have successfully avoided being chair of this committee for however many years since 2009.
Yeah, but then you stepped up to be vice chair and it's all been downhill.
No, she didn't step up. I nominated.
Oh.
And
All
I
right, you
used
didn't
to-
put up a fight when you were
I
nominated.
did. I put up a fight. And I used to weasel out of this by taking the minutes, but then we hired Jamie, and Jamie takes much better minutes than I ever took.
But you were the fastest minute taker we've ever
I just
experienced.
never edit minutes. I just send you whatever
We,
dribble I type.
minute, we walked out the door and we were already being emailed the
Yes,
minutes.
you were. Because if I walked out the door without emailing you the minutes, you would never have seen them. And so that is a piece of my background and my personality, is that I am not the most organized human being. And so if you were to elect me chair of this committee,
Disorganized.
yes, sir.
Be any more
Totally.
disorganized.
you're committed to the cause.
I am committed to the cause. I mean, that's why I'm here.
And you were able to find that the first minutes were from July 2009, so. I
Because
think-
they were in a folder on my
So he's not
laptop.
entirely
He's not
disorganized.
organized at all.
Yeah,
Everything's
right,
in a folder.
there.
Wait a minute.
But look at it this way, you have a drill sergeant and she's sitting here. And she'll keep you organized.
And so it is a much easier job than it would have been in 2009.
Yeah, of course,
Sure.
absolutely.
And more of my children can put their own shoes on.
Yeah,
than
and
say
That's
was the
true.
case.
And you bring a level of moral commitment to the cause, which I think is valuable.
I think that's mostly what I bring to the cause.
I think
This is
that's,
outrage.
I think that's what's most important. So I don't think you can weasel out of this, Deb.
I move the motion.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
Okay, I kind of object, but all right.
Well, you can vote against your nomination because we do take a vote on.
I know, it won't be unanimous.
So all in favor,
All in favor?
all opposed?
You're doing a good Julius Caesar on this, really.
You know what happened? Okay.
And we also need a vice
I
chair.
do need a vice chair. Step it up, folks.
Who would like to serve that in that role? Since I don't think we've discussed
Yeah,
nominations.
yeah. And so you would, in fact, I would consider you to be groomed then, to be the chair, because I am not long for this committee. I'm only still here because I'm bad at paperwork. I've served way more terms than you're allowed to serve, but one of them wasn't official because I hadn't filed paperwork. So in the next, what? I don't remember how many terms I think I've left, but, or you could be chair next year, like if you wanted to.
Yeah, and just for, so the way it will work is I typically will put together the first brush at an agenda. I'll send it to the chair and vice chair for their review. If the chair's not here, you run the meeting, like it's pretty low key for the vice chair position. Not selling it.
I'm happy to put that on,
Nominate Lydia.
Yay.
as long as I'm not considered for the chair in the next calendar year.
Because she does have the issue
She
of
has
kids
the
not putting their
shoes.
shoes
Yes,
on.
yes, since that was a
You still-
caveat.
that was a yes, yeah.
Two people who cannot put their shoes on.
I second the nomination.
Okay, fantastic. So we have, actually, I don't think I'm allowed to make motions anymore.
Yeah, you, sure you can.
The chair can make motions? I'm gonna have to like read it.
I know,
Yeah.
we're pretty loosey-goosey around here.
Yeah,
All right,
Okay,
so we have a motion and a second, we'll just say.
okay. So all in favor of Lydia as vice chair with the caveat that
She will not be chair.
That we have to teach our kids really how to.
Tie their shoes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fine with me.
I'm good at teaching children how to.
Don't do thing for a reason, you know. Dan,
Lydia has been duly elected the chair of this.
Vice chair.
oh, that was.
That was clever of me. I
Oh,
tried.
yeah.
I tried, okay. All right, thank you, Lydia.
All right.
I'll
Thank
hand
you
you my
both.
pacemaker.
All right, 2025 priorities.
Yeah, so the packet included the council goals and I will, if you give me a second, I'll get them up on the screen.
Yeah, because I have to admit, I didn't read them. I already gave you my tale of woe and my rationale for being unprepared.
We have to.
Oh, yeah, our second goal, conservation, sustainability and resiliency.
Yes.
I read them. I thought they were awesome.
So I highlighted the one that is most closely connected to us, which is establishing the sustainability reserve account. And I do have an update about that, I mean, change happens slowly at the municipal level, so, but we're finally making some progress towards this. So for a little bit of background, the town passed its energy plan back in 2017. That's when the town council adopted it. One of the items in there was to establish a reserve account for energy efficiency and sustainability projects. And we're just now getting there. So this was before the finance committee in February with a proposal, and it is going to the town council on March 5th. A resolution to establish the sustainability reserve account. And so that resolution lays out kind of the funding formula, which will be 50% of any excess revenues collected through electrical permits and all in lieu fees collected from the EV charging ordinance. And then any other kind of additional funding that the town council may want to direct towards that account. And the finance committee is recommending through the budgeting process to account with $25,000.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a lot.
And so for folks who are new to the game, the background of this is that there were a couple of times in those early years where there were grant opportunities with matching funding. And wow, the council process is slow. And by the time we got our wits together, the opportunities were gone.
Well, yeah, and also typically, unless it's kind of planned for and set aside as like grant match within our operations budget, we can only request that funding through the annual budgeting process, which is happening right now and is completed in June. And never really do grant timelines work within that.
Exactly.
that
And years
schedule.
ago, when we had the pilot curbside
Recycling project or
compost
food waste,
food
yes.
waste pickup project,
Hmm.
we did not have a budget. We were not able to send out a mailing to the affected houses. So a couple of us walked door to door to the affected houses. But we didn't have the resources, and I can't even remember who paid for our flyers. I think that might have been EcoMaine. Like we were begging for the basics. And so over the years, we have gotten more stability. I mean, we have the funding for a sustainability chair. But this is a huge step and one that we have been pressing for well over a decade at this point. So hooray.
Great.
So yeah, hopefully as of March 5th, that account will be established. And then again, through the budgeting process, it will get its funding.
And let me just sort of throw one more thought out there. So originally the thought was that we would fund this with some portion of the savings from projects that we put together. And so I would encourage folks on this committee, should I wander off before we manage something that would incur savings, that at those times we make a specific request for council to put a chunk of money. I mean, we eventually realized that the math is too complicated to try to keep up with that in real time. But to make an estimate and make a request at the time of those things going on. So.
Yeah, we can certainly work that in. And so giving some examples of things that like we mentioned, grant match, there may also be opportunities to kind of function as like Efficiency Maine does and make up some of the difference between kind of conventional practices and more sustainable practices, because there is often a bigger investment upfront for more efficient technologies to kind of help get over that hurdle between, what it would cost to, for example, replace an oil boiler and do a more efficient approach should we need to upgrade a boiler here. Another example is down at the community services maintenance building. They've got a solar array. They're currently exporting a ton of they're generating more than they use in that building. And they're like, oh, we need a new generator for when we lose power. I was like, please get a battery. Please get a battery instead of a generator. You're already generating the electricity. It can charge the battery. You never need to, like, there's no maintenance. You don't need to do an oil change on it. You don't need to do any of that regular maintenance that a fossil fuel generator would require, and it's always charging. So even when we're offline, you don't need to refill it. The sun is doing that for you. So
They're considering it.
they are considering it.
Yeah, it's just a funding.
Yeah, it's just kind of a timing thing. I mean, we will often, that will probably be something as part of like their budget. I started talking with our former community services director about it last fall. They were starting to think about what their needs were for this upcoming budget cycle. And so I do need to kind of circle back since we now have a new community services director to see where that process is. But it makes so much sense. Like, I mean, it is more of an investment up front, but it's the long-term savings.
But that solar array is there because of our efforts.
Right.
Now, if there's excess off that solar array, could that meter be tied to some other meter?
It is, yeah, we are
Okay.
getting credits for it, but like, it would be much better. I mean, I think that we would still get credits also,
Yeah.
even with a battery because it's charged and then, it
Yeah.
doesn't need to continuously charge until it's drawn
Used,
down,
yeah.
so.
What about a project to put solar panels on the public safety building?
Back to the solar projects. those were intended as pilot projects to see if that was a reasonable technology for our town, because we were kind of cautious about things. And those were done a decade ago, and we have not made further progress. So yes, I think that there is a task to revisit that question and see which other facilities should have solar arrays on them, to see if there are parking lots that should have solar carport covers, to see if we're ready to do some of those things. So those projects have been there long enough that they have been transferred to the town. They were on PPAs, they've been transferred to the town. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had an interesting experience with revision lately. We were gonna have a third set of panels put on. And they said, well, we gotta come out and evaluate what your needs are, because you may be getting more than you actually need for your house. I said, how can that be? Well, sure. He said, the panels that are going on now are much more efficient in generating electricity than what you got. And I was kind of going, I felt like I had an antiquated system on my
How old
house.
are your panels that you?
About 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
But it just shows you the advancement
Yeah.
that's going on. I
Yeah.
thought that was a remarkable
Yeah.
situation, that projects that maybe we wish we had gotten to this and done it. Well, doing it now might result in a much better product.
Well, but there's the lost time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Ever
so,
forward.
yeah, so though we have a list somewhere, Jamie has our list of things to do when we can get the breathing space to do some of these things.
Yeah, it's at the end of every set of minutes. I'm
But
pretty
we've
sure.
spent quite a bit of time over the last few years on these sort of planning processes that are finally in a space where we have documents that we can proceed with.
Mhm.
So, were there
I just have a question. I know that many towns do, part of their sustainability committee is some environmental type things, pesticides, herbicides, stuff like that. Certainly is in South Portland, Falmouth. I think in Scarborough, it's handled by Conscom,
Conservation.
right? But
There used to be a committee, PMAC or something like that.
Yeah, PMAC was to oversee the implementation of the town's organic pesticide policy, which applies just to town lands, and it's been rolled into the Conservation Commission.
because not last night, the night before, Falmouth, the town council approved a new regulation. It's through their sustainability thing, and it is basically no or limited pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, organic or not organic, and nothing within 75 feet of any body of water or wetland. Within 250 feet, it's very, very limited, and any commercial, like a lot of things have, if they are applied, you have to use integrated pest management. And it has to be applied by a commercial installer who has to register and do all their stuff with the town. So they're really covering their basis, and it was interesting to follow. I went to the meetings, and of course, there was a lot of pushback and people in town insisting that all the residents in the town didn't want anything so restrictive. And the board, the town council went for it and they approved it, because in reality, people do want it. I just opening that up in case we ever want to consider something. There are other examples in other towns around here.
That's good, because we got pushback at the town council on adopting setbacks from wetlands.
Yeah.
And eventually it was a compromise.
Yeah.
But still, there was some developers pushing back hard against the 25-foot setback that was before
I
us.
want to go in the water.
And it was nice to see the town council rally around that sustainability issue.
Yeah.
And passed it by a wide margin.
So Jamie, are you aware of efforts on conservation at this point to move in that direction, or?
So they've been talking about it. One of the challenges, and I think that this group can appreciate this, is that we don't necessarily have the support at the town council level. I think that there needs to be a lot of outreach that happens within the community to get community members on board and asking for pesticide ordinances and things like that. Conservation Commission did have 2 residents come to a meeting last fall expressing concern. It's definitely a concern that the commission shares. But it's really hard to invest the time in an effort that is unlikely at this point to get passed by the town council. So we need to start with an education campaign around it.
Is there a role for this group, or is that something that should stay with conservation?
I think it at this point, because they do have PMAC as part of their group, Pesticide Management Advisory Council Committee, Advisory Committee. It probably makes sense for it to stay with PMAC, but it definitely is something that can be supported by, or stay with the Conservation Commission, but it's something that can be supported by this group for sure.
But the current rules in place, there's a ban for town.
For town
Does that
properties.
include schools?
But
Yeah,
it's pretty easy to get
No,
around.
Not like sports
No.
fields.
It's
or-
not, well, the town maintains the sports fields, so it does apply to sports fields, and I'll say in the past 5 years. There has been, I think, maybe 2 applications to deal with grubs.
Yeah, wasn't that, I saw that there was an issue at Shover's. I think they were trying to get, like a workaround because they had such a huge grub issue.
Yeah, so we do have a waiver process,
Yeah.
as part of, Scarborough's policy where, basically, we need to, the town staff that are responsible for maintaining the fields need, and the fields are really where the biggest issue is. That's where you need kind of the, certain level of quality for safety and playability and things like that. And so they've gotten a waiver, I think, twice in the past 5 years to deal with the grub issue because it was just getting beyond what they were able to manage.
Yeah.
The Community Services Department did come to the Conservation Commission last fall, just with a heads up saying they're seeing signs of grub damage. And I've been talking to them about thinking about alternatives, and it's something that they need to, it's not like you notice a grub problem and then you deal with it. It's something that you need to incorporate into your regular practices in order to keep, to manage grubs. So I've been talking to them about trying to do a pilot to see how kind of the more natural approaches, and it's using beneficial nematodes, which are microscopic critters that get into your soil and attack the grubs so that they don't become an issue. But again, that's something that needs to be done annually and not just when you notice a problem.
Yeah, lobster compost is super useful as well.
Oh.
That chitin lobster compost.
I have not
supports a
heard that.
Supports a bacterial community
Huh.
that attacks the feeding mouthhooks of the grubs.
Oh.
And the other thing that they should be watching for if they're looking at Japanese beetle grubs.
Yeah.
Is that the wasp that feeds on the grubs has made it to Maine. And so those populations are in fact dropping
Oh.
in places where the wasp is available.
Something good with climate change then. Thank
Yeah.
you, wasps.
Well, no, it just takes time.
Yeah.
To follow the population. And so when you're talking to them, if they're seeing the Japanese beetles, what they want to look for is like an egg spot, like right in the shoulder blade.
Mhm.
And if there are eggs in the shoulder blade, those beetles should be left because those are supporting the wasp population. And I can eat raspberries again. So, I mean, that sounds like a non sequitur. I used to only raise Japanese.
Because the
beetles
Japanese beetles aren't eating them anymore.
I only used to raise Japanese beetles in that bed. Yeah.
Falmouth did do a carve out for grub treatment. However, the grub treatments need to be applied by commercial.
Or like, they need to be like licensed.
Licensed,
Yeah.
Licensed and licensed with the town.
Yeah.
And they have to pay.
That's how the town started, is they started with a licensing program for their applicators so that they could get a sense, and they were required to report annually the amounts and types of products that they were using, and that's how they kind of justified doing taking it further and doing a townwide ban, because they had the local data to support what was being used.
So the next item on, are there other things in town goals that we need to know about?
That was really the big one related to this group. I mean, there's certainly others that are tangentially related, like low impact development that's dealing with stormwater. The town council is interested in establishing a stormwater fee, so similar to Portland Stormwater Utility, where you everyone pays for their impervious cover on their property. Interested in exploring that option as a way to address some of our operational costs related to stormwater, so it doesn't fall on taxpayers. It works in Portland because they have a huge nonprofit base that wasn't paying taxes at all. So it did make dealing with that a little bit more fair and equitable. We don't know if we would have a similar situation here in Scarborough. I get the sense that we don't have as many nonprofits as they have in Portland, so it may not. So we need to do some work to understand what that might mean for Scarborough and if it makes sense for Scarborough.
Okay.
Would that be like a fee?
Yeah.
For like parking lots and things like that?
For parking lots, for roofs, for driveways, for patios,
And it would apply to commercial properties or all properties?
all properties, commercial, residential,
So it's transitioning that expense from
from your
from
taxes,
your property
to-
taxes to a specific line item.
right?
And so that follow up on how they're billing that, please.
Oh, yeah, it's,
Because when we had back, I'm going back to compost pilot,
mhm,
and we were talking about trying to charge for garbage in a scaled kind of way. I mean, there are 3 sizes of garbage tubs out there, but you all pay the same
Yeah.
regardless of which one you have, regardless of how many you have, you can ask for
Mhm.
extras. And at the time, the problem was that we couldn't figure out how to bill that.
yeah, it's, this would require an entirely new department in order to manage it, because it's a huge bureaucratic process because of the billing, and understand there's an opportunity for people to get credits if they do certain things on their properties, and so how do you apply those credits? And
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, the
so
trash question is much easier, but the underlying issue of whether we can add to the tax bills a line item that is variable based on.
and this isn't the tax bill. This would be an entirely separate billing. So it's,
Okay,
yeah,
I
it's,
mean,
yeah, this is something that, that staff have a lot of, questions over. And again, because, I mean, Portland is large, they have a lot of nonprofits, they have a lot of impervious cover. And they also are working under a consent order from, EPA because they have combined sewers, so stormwater and wastewater are combined. And they need to separate that. They have far more, stormwater and sewer related expenses than Scarborough does. We don't have any combined sewers.
but
So
the
it's,
background issue is, I would love, I mean, I know it's on our list, but to revisit the issue of differential pricing for garbage collection.
yeah, I mean, that, these are kind of apples and oranges and things like that. So, but yeah, it's certainly, a lot of related questions. And I don't want to, have preconceived notions, but I would think that the cost to set up a stormwater utility in Scarborough would not, the balance isn't there. There is no cost benefit for taking that step, but we may need to go through the process to have that hard data to show that. Probably back like 10, 12 years ago, started talking about this, and the analysis said it would make sense to do it on a regional scale. So if the other communities in the area were interested in a similar approach, it would make sense to work together, have one kind of separate entity managing the billing and the credits and all of that for multiple municipalities and not just for one. That's a much more cost efficient model. But other municipalities, at least, 10 years ago, were not ready to take that step.
Well, I really think your idea of trying to figure out some sort of charging for the amount of trash that people generate is it's gotta be done.
Well-
I mean, now with Amazon and everything, everyone orders everything. The amount of, I live in a condo association and we have townhouses and stuff. Some people have garbage piles
Well-
out there the size of this table every week.
When I moved here, we were limited to no more than 12 barrels of no more than 75 gallons each week. And so I did the math
12
to figure
barrels.
out how long it would take me to throw away all of my stuff, and it was just a couple of months. Um,
Well, and are like the pay per bag, pay to throw programs and things like that, which,
Which we rejected out of, like, we did the work on that, and we rejected that as
We rejected or the town did?
this committee
Okay.
encouraged the town to reject it
Okay.
because the interaction with the bins
With
and the
recycling.
bags, like, we already have the bins. And preventing people from putting a bunch of garbage in the bin and one paper bag on the top. And then what does the truck driver do when he encounters that? And
yeah,
it
cause
did
we have
not feel-
auto, like.
yeah, it did
tipping
not
and
feel
stuff
like, like, somebody came in and had sold this to town council. And this committee did the background work and asked town council to reject that proposal.
Well, I remember very clearly sitting in the meeting when Bill was one of your past existences on the council.
Yeah.
And you sat right there and said there is no political will in the town to do this. And I think that one of the things that we need to consider if we think about these projects is what is the political will in the town?
Mhm.
And is there a benefit? And I sat in that meeting with the pay to throw and whatever, and I said, part of our property taxes is a carve out for trash services. Would there be a refund on that if we then went to pay to throw? And Tom Hall, who used to sit in all of our meetings, said no. So with that thought in mind, it just turns into a money grab for the town, because now it's like an extra tax on top of an existing tax. I think a lot of these projects, you have to think about what, is there a benefit for the citizens to go along with this? If they just see, for this impervious fee thing, if people just see this as another tax, they go, I'm not down for that.
And that's why it hasn't passed in a lot of municipalities, because it is the rain tax, you can't stop the rain, why am I getting taxed on the rain and things like that? So there is a huge public outreach component that goes along with that, and typically people want to see an offset in their property taxes.
But I think that there has to be another parameter of evaluation on some of our projects. It's good for the environment, it's good for you, and it needs to be quantifiable. You've heard me make these speeches in the past. You know, people have to understand, like, okay, I'll support it, oh, and it also helps me. It's a win-win. Those are the kinds of things that need to be crafted.
And I mean, in our house, our rule was we're not gonna do anything that's not gonna pay for itself before the warranty runs out. And with that rule in place, we've been able to eliminate 94% of the carbon load of the house. Overland College,
And you're saving yourself some money at the same time.
that's what I mean by pay for itself before the
Right.
warranty runs out. It has to be at least cost neutral, if not cost positive. And Oberlin College learned that just extending the look period for purchases from 3 years to 10 years, like, how much will it cost me to buy and operate this thing for 10 years? Enabled them to take an entirely different set of actions.
That's the same analysis that we did for the solar panels.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
the solar panel is great and the town will save X amount of money because I did that analysis.
And then there are separate questions that we can talk about in terms of equity. And so today, all of us are paying taxes, and those taxes then are paying for garbage collection. And we are all paying based on the size of our houses or whatever, but we are not paying based on our behaviors. And because we're not paying based on our behaviors, there's no incentive for anyone to change behaviors. Because, you know, you can just ask for another bin and send more garbage.
Yeah, if there was a fee for an extra bin, then I think that would make some sense.
Right, and so, I mean, my family has been using the small size bin for decades. through times when they had 2 kids in diapers and 2 teenagers in the house. And it works. And we don't feel penned in. And we have neighbors that are using 2 of the 4 times, like they have 8 times the garbage capacity that they're putting out each week. So in any case, it's a question that I would like, I don't see that one's kind of fallen off the list unless it's kind of incorporated in recycling and composted food waste, but
It may not be, but I will add it back in there.
anyway, we aren't actually trying to have this argument right now because that would really slow us down. But it's on the list. So the remaining task for us then for today, we have 10 minutes left before we get to updates, is beginning the process of prioritizing our own work for this next year. And in preparation for that, I mean, Jamie reminds us that she puts the future projects list at the bottom of the minutes every time. And I would like to just read that out loud and use these 10 minutes as an opportunity to see if there's anything else that we want to add to that. And then in our next meeting, do we have anything major for our next meeting, or can we really dig into this prioritization?
So, the next meeting, it's going to depend, well, I will reiterate that we are going to be starting on our climate action plan this year. We should find out if we, received the grant that we applied for. It was a local grant, not a federal grant. The funding source is state money, so, that is secure at this point. So we should find out in March if that grant was successful. And then we'll be starting the process of hiring our consultant to help support that process. So I will say climate action plan is going to be at the forefront of this committee's work for a little while. But that doesn't mean that we can't do kind of, if there's like an outreach effort or something that we want to.
Yeah, I thought I was overly optimistic and thinking we've gotten through the report writing phases and we could get back to our actual project.
We sure have not, but the climate action plan is going to definitely generate a lot of projects for the town to prioritize and consider.
Okay. Well, I hope that we can choose 1 or 2 of these things to make some progress on in the background. We had been making some progress in the background on the community solar municipal solar array, but that's been yanked out from under us. So in any case, I will read the list out loud. Yeah, I'm gonna read it out loud anyway while you see it. Coordination with Scarborough Public Schools, the community solar municipal solar array, municipal building energy audits, residential energy efficiency grants, electric school buses, and that was tied into battery capacity for electricity offset, time of use,
Yeah.
charge thingy
Box
box.
related.
Recycling information for homeowners when houses change hands. I mean, that might be something that we,
That's definitely a
That's a
discrete
low-hanging
task, yeah,
fruit.
that would be pretty easily
Um,
implemented without too much.
composting food waste. I would like for us to revisit that question of where those collection facilities are and what contacts we might need to be making with the contractors that are available locally. The tree preservation ordinance, wasn't that in Conservation Commission?
That is something that this group has talked about in the past as well, which is why it was still on the list. I will share that the town is going to be pursuing as part of the 2025 goals, a Tree City USA designation. So that will put kind of more requirements on the town to do more of its own kind of tree planting and tree preservation as a first step. I think that the wetland setbacks that Bill referenced earlier that was a battle, that was a huge challenge. And so doing additional environmental related ordinances, I think there's going to be a pause in that because we also have other, our low impact development ordinance is going to be coming, which is a requirement. So that's going to, I think, be the next big environmental related ordinance revision that we're going to tackle. So tree preservation, I think, is going to take a back burner because we have things that we are required to do to be in compliance with federal permits.
Okay. And then swap shop and energy stretch code. And I think we should put on this list the sort of education and outreach of which our Sustainability Day is certainly a piece of that,
Mhm.
but do we want to step up that work?
And I will also put out there that this group, members of this group are welcome to take on some of these tasks independent of me. So any education and outreach that you want to do, Deb, you've mentioned writing letters to the leader and things like that on certain topics. And
Yeah,
so if there are kind of topics that people feel strongly about, you are welcome to do
Yeah.
some of that kind of letter writing and outreach. And
so there are two levels of prioritization here. One is prioritization of the use of Jamie's time, on which we don't have full control. And then the other is if there are tasks that we want to assign ourselves as individuals to go, I mean, quite frankly, folks, this is the way the committee functioned for a long time with no staff, is that when we had priorities, we each took pieces of that and had assignments, and then came back to report on those assignments. So that may be a way to make progress in some of the other things in the background. Are there other things that we should be adding to this list?
Is Sustainability Day on the?
Well, Jamie's adding.
Expanding.
yeah, I mean, that's
kind
that's always on there.
I know, but I'm just having, wanting
That's
us
a
to
current
have-
project. That's not a future
Just
project.
generating awareness, that would be
Yeah.
the goal. Yeah.
Yeah,
The coordination with the public schools is pretty broad statement, but one of the things that I've been really hoping is that in the discussions on the new school options, that they have some energy efficiency, alternative, some kind of renewables built into that. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's happening.
well, if we go back to
Or
the Wentworth
getting
project, there certainly were efforts in the context of that. The problem is that those pieces are often the things that get chopped
Yes.
at the last minute.
The fun term for it is value engineered. So they get value engineered out because of the initial upfront costs that it
And
takes.
So that's where an ordinance that would require a 10-year lookout rather than a 3-year lookout might make some progress. And the other thing that I'd recommend on the Wentworth project that we didn't end up doing was sort of a 2-stage question. Like, do you approve spending the money on the school? And if the school thing passes, do we approve spending this much money on the energy efficiency upgrades? So separating them out and then making a separate case, a separate financial case for the efficiency upgrades. So they didn't do that. They value engineered the things out, and didn't give us the option of approving those. as
Yeah, and the
separate.
same thing happened with the public safety building as well. There were other kind of systems that were planned, but they were cut because of the costs as they went through the process.
So put the 10-year lookout thing back on the list, because that's been there before, but we've never done any active work on it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And for some of these previous projects, Rick Munking, who's been on this committee, was recently the chair of this committee, also served on a couple of those and worked really hard to ensure that those things were included. But given the way our rules really are set up for making public expenditures, it's been difficult to justify those things. So that's something that we certainly can and should pursue. Yeah. Others for the list. Okay, so in our next meeting, it seems unlikely that we'll be ready to do anything for whatever that next bloody form is. So I would like to ask that we spend our next meeting looking at prioritizing these things. And I will plan then, once Jamie sends me the updated list of everything that's on there right now, to send out a ranked choice ballot, just to see where we're sitting right now as to where we'd like to devote our committee time. And then that doesn't mean that we wouldn't decide to devote our committee time to 2 or 3 projects with some people working on one and others working on it. Does that sound like an approach?
That sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does anybody have anything else to add to the list before we move on to updates?
Or I can put this in a Google spreadsheet that people can have access to and go in and add to. Do it, or think of other ideas, and then you'll have access to
Well,
it.
and when I put out the form, I can
Yeah.
make a line for other
Other,
ideas as well.
yeah.
So we can always keep adding to this, and that's why we keep it on our agenda. I mean, on our minutes, is so that we can continue adding to this.
I'm wondering if there would be any interest in putting together a town guide for residents who are interested in making switches to heat pumps or electric water heaters, or, I know there's a lot of resources out there. But if there could be anything that's like directed to Scarborough residents, that would be
On
easy
there,
for us to
regulate
do.
our
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah, that is a need. The Sustainability Committee's webpage is sorely out of
These things
date,
often-
so.
Even if it's just
happen.
corralling other
Right, and so
people's
we had
resources.
originally said that what we want to do on our webpage
Yeah.
was make that a resource for people to find the right resources. We
Yeah.
don't need to reinvent the wheel. But we haven't talked about that in probably years. So definitely that should be on the list as something, that's another low hanging item. that we
Yeah,
could
yeah.
Address. Okay. So keep thinking about this. If something pops up in your head in the next week or so, you'll be watching for, in a week or so, a message that probably, I don't know, you send these out to us, but asking you to complete the form so that I can do the data analysis and we can have a starting point for a conversation next week.
I have a question about something you said, that basically the solar array stuff has been sort of taken away from us. And is that what you meant? In the context of, is there something we can do to help out the fact that we're not gonna get money to look at that, but as a, can we in fact do something? And is it more efficient to look at the municipal array as opposed to sticking things on each building
Exactly.
in that direction?
So how to move forward on some.
Okay, so you're not saying we're taking that off because something happened?
Like we
Okay,
thought, that was a project we had been sort of slowly in the background working on.
yeah,
And our progress has stopped on that particular path, but the item does remain on the list.
okay,
Yes.
Thank
of
you.
course. Thank you.
Well, our progress has stopped because we're not getting this grant, because the grant's been put on hold. Is
Yeah.
that it?
yeah, so. we
Yeah,
need to
so
go
that was
well.
the-
But we don't necessarily need the grant in order to continue to move forward with that.
Thank you, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's something that we could think about with this new sustainability fund.
We had a path. And we had funding through that path to take the next steps. And the funding hadn't gotten to our bank account yet because that's slow. And that had been slowing our progress. And now we're not waiting for that anymore, so we can get back to the drawing board, figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay, so your tasks, I just closed that, shoot. Your tasks for this next,
I'll summarize.
Yeah.
I'll get it out to you.
okay. Updates, town council.
Well, I already mentioned the happiest day of all the years, all the meetings going home was passing the setback. I don't think I've ever been more pleased going home, arguing vigorously and receiving equal support from others on the town council for a step that it's a hallmark of Scarborough wetlands. And so that's the most recent thing that we've been involved.
Congratulations, thank you for that.
Yes, it was amazing what a fight that was for such a small setback.
I would, the other thing is applaud Jamie's efforts, because while it's not a town council activity, I'm just one of hundreds, dozens, hundreds of volunteers for the Pipey Plover project, which is super active at Higgins Beach.
Starting up soon.
Sign of spring.
And I love working with Jamie and Glennis Shabbat, the team we have for that project.
Yeah, we have that volunteer pool has grown significantly. I think we have 70 to 80 volunteers every year monitoring
Wow.
our
Yeah,
beaches.
and Piper Shores has more and more people involved in it.
Yeah.
Which is a nice contribution to our community, what Piper Shores adds.
Fascinating. So finding ways to engage community members in
Yeah,
this work. is
There,
sort
well,
of
there's a very
attention raising.
passionate group
Okay.
related to the piping plovers.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Little animals will do it.
Yeah, for sure. Endangered species.
And I've got a counselor corner I probably have to write in the next few months. And so I was thinking of a sustainability topic, so give that some thought.
Yeah,
Because
Maybe the difference between, you know, the decisions between, you know, like at the community services, like between a battery and a liquid fuels power generator, you know,
Yeah.
the town making those decisions. Where's the difference?
Or maybe starting the
Tipping the
conversation
scale.
on this
Yeah.
3-year, 10-year accounting
Schools.
question.
yeah, so
I don't actually know what our rules are. I keep saying 3 years, that's our rule, but that's a kind of standard rule. and
yeah, I
don't
was
know
gonna say, I
what
think
ours
that
is.
that's probably more of a practice and not necessarily a set requirement, maybe.
Most entities have some documented set requirement for evaluating contracts. Evaluating proposals.
I don't have the depth of knowledge about some of this to write an article that would do us justice.
Mhm.
But if
Okay.
it's an idea, it's a responsibility I carry, so sitting here and listening to those of you who do know.
Yeah, I
Tells
think
me that we could do something.
the, after the prioritization process next month, maybe something will rise to the surface that, can be the focus of that art.
Yeah.
And you're talking about an article and not a public meeting, Counselor Corner, not a Counselor Corner live, but a Counselor Corner
No,
article.
it's the Scarborough Leader.
Yeah,
Article.
Okay.
We've got assignments and mine's down in April or something.
okay.
Okay, planning board, is that April these days?
That's
I
autumn
mean, sorry, autumn, sorry.
or Helen.
Hey, everyone. So our last planning board meeting, we had 4 items at the Downs. And so we saw a sketch plan for the new market basket that will be opening up next year. So that's pretty exciting. And then we also have a sketch plan for some junior retail and some mixed use 6-story buildings with apartments and retail on the bottom. So that Market Street, Scarborough Downs intersection, if you've been there recently, is going to start really looking different in the next 18 months or so.
Okay. Conservation Commission.
So Conservation Commission has not met yet in 2025, but their focus was on the wetland setbacks, and hooray that got passed. Next up, we'll be looking at Tree City USA designation, and then also we are going to begin working on additional stream protections for our urban impaired streams. So that's Phillips Brook and Red Brook. We currently have stream protection overlay on a bunch of our streams in Scarborough, but for some reason, our 2 impaired streams are lacking those additional protections. So we are going to begin the process of updating our shoreline zoning ordinance to extend those protections to Phillips Brook and all of Red Brook. Only a portion of Red Brook is currently covered by stream protection at this point. So we have, that is another requirement of our federal stormwater permit is to extend stream protections to our impaired streams. So that will be another effort coming down the pike this spring.
So transportation.
Transportation Committee, Autumn, do you have an update for that one?
Oh, sure. So last night we met and we went over public comments and the edits that we are proposing to the townwide transportation assessment. So we're hoping to have that wrapped up in May and then back to council. We also are kicking off with GP Cog as our project manager partner, our Complete Streets and Safe Routes toolbox. So that'll be coming up soon as well.
So Complete Streets is making room for bike and ped facilities, as well as cars and things like that.
And that has been a council priority for well over a decade.
Yeah, and we do have,
Sometimes goes on and off the list.
Yeah. And we do have a policy, and I think that this is just re-looking at that policy and maybe trying to beef it up, make the requirements a little bit.
This-
For them
This
suggestions.
project will really define the street types that we have in the town. We'll have different sections that are appropriate, you know, west of the turnpike is gonna look completely different for a complete street than Route 1 would. So this will give us a lot more information to use when they come in for development.
And will that include interconnections between like pedestrian bike routes, like interconnections to ensure?
Not this document. This document will be what those things need to look like and how we can use certain techniques to achieve our goals. But a document that I'm requesting in our 2026 CIP budget is our Trails and Sidewalks Master Plan. And that would incorporate information from the transportation assessment, the open space plan, and the parks facilities plan to get us that interconnection, you know, the sidewalks on the street to get us to the trails, to get us to the open space. So it'll pretty
Thank
exciting
you.
project.
Okay. Planning projects, open space plan, vulnerability assessment. What do you
Yeah.
know about those?
Autumn gave a good segue to that, talking about the trails plan. So the open space plan, we are wrapping up. So the most recent draft is available on the town's website. We have a workshop with town council scheduled on March 5th to present that and get their kind of feedback and comments so that we can wrap that up and hopefully they will adopt it this spring. And so the big outcome there was really kind of helping us understand where we are in relation to the town's 30 by 30 goal, which is conserving 30% of Scarborough's land by 2030. Our baseline coming out of that plan shows that we're roughly 22% conserved in Scarborough, or protected, I should say, either through formal conservation easements or designated open space through the planning process for subdivisions and things like that. There's protected open space related to many of our subdivisions. And so we have a good inventory of that. And then the plan outlines strategies for increasing our open space and then just protecting what we currently have. So like I said, that will be going to the town council for a workshop in early March. And then we'll wrap it up soon thereafter. And then the vulnerability assessment, that project is scheduled to wrap up this summer. That's looking at Scarborough's areas and infrastructure that are vulnerable to coastal flooding. We are getting ready to launch the story map for that project. That's kind of the big deliverable for that project, that is going to be an interactive website where people can go and see which areas are vulnerable, when they'll be vulnerable. So we looked out through 2100 for that and looking at kind of the different flooding scenarios. So the story map will initially just look at flood vulnerabilities. And then as we move through the process this spring, there will also be adaptation strategies that are added to that for the different areas of Scarborough. And then we're looking at 3 sites for additional assessment for adaptation strategies that are going to have a little bit more in-depth look, so that we will position ourselves for either CIP funds in the future or grant funding, if it is still available, to begin addressing.
And
some of
CIP
these
is?
areas. Capital improvement projects, capital improvement plan. It's part of the town's annual budgeting process. So the story map should be made available publicly in March. We're just working with our consultants. The working group that is involved in the vulnerability assessment just went through and did their internal review. And so updates need to be made before it's launched, but it's coming soon.
Perfect. And we are almost exactly on time because we already have an agenda for next meeting. We don't need to talk about that. Next meeting is scheduled for March 26th. Jamie will send out those reminders. Unless somebody has something else to say, I would be open to a move to motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Vote by standing. All right.
Thanks all. Thanks, Deb.
Welcome.